Hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. Thank you for coming back to listen to more of Queen Andraya. Today we are on Chapter 21. Here we go. Chapter 21. Dancing and Scheming. Queen Andraya scanned the extensive throne room. The substantial space burst with colorful bouquets everywhere, and blooming slender trees lined the entire length of the hall on either side, with gold twinkling lights draped between them. From the high-vaulted ceilings hung 3 large golden chandeliers, one on the left, another on the right, and the largest one hanging lower in the center. A live orchestra sat above the dais, bowing a slow but uplifting minuet. 2 gold-plated empty thrones rested above the orchestra. A proud Chaldean flag hung on the wall behind it. The red carpet had been rolled up, allowing the marble floor to fill with the entire Chaldean nobility, court officials, and island coalition. Andraya assumed that with the exception of a few housemaids, every servant in the palace was either working in the kitchen or serving hors d'oeuvres and other delicacies to the party guests. Most court officials wore their traditional gray suits, but the nobility veered from their traditional black to every splash of color imaginable. A refreshing change, Andraya thought. Even the traditional white gloves varied from white to black to red to gold. But what Andraya liked best was the fact that she was finally not the only woman in the room, since the nobility and court officials were allowed to invite their spouses and adult children to the party. However, the sight grew daunting as well. How was she supposed to vet out all of these people and decipher who was behind the attempted assassination on her life? Andraya swept her eyes across the massive hall once more, watching various groups converse cheerfully and loudly, while others stood more aloof, and others still remained solitary. "My queen, you look absolutely radiant this evening." Andraya turned to find Prince Steffan beaming at her. "Every last inch of you is sparkling," he said, his smile as wide as ever. The queen swiftly glanced over her silver bodice, covered with diamonds from the waist up to the neckline. She smoothed her silver skirt, which fanned out at the waist, and overlaid with the jeweled silver sheer. With all the various lights in the room, she really was glittering in all directions. "Thank you, Your Highness." The prince bowed in response as he took her silver-gloved hand and kissed it. "Do you think our plan is going to work?" whispered the queen. "It will certainly get us a leg ahead," Steffan presumed. "I think you mean to say a step ahead," Andraya corrected. "Ah, yes, thank you. I had forgotten you were new to Chaldean. You speak so well now." Steffan flashed her a smile. "And yet you just corrected me a moment ago." "But that was just a small modification. Now tell me, who are you going to talk to first?" The queen and the prince both shifted their gaze to the crowd. "Tell me who is the most intolerable, and I will speak to them," the prince suggested. Andraya grinned. "A generous offer, Your Highness. I must admit I would rather not speak to Lord Lucas." "Which one is he?" Steffan asked, leaning into Andraya a bit. "He is standing to the left of Chancellor Dolion. The 2 of them are close friends." Steffan gave her a sideways glance. "You don't say. He looks very much like Lord Bartholomew, what with the reddish hair and spectacles." "Indeed, they are cousins, both from Bistira, both highly educated, but very different demeanors." "And which office of government do they work in?" "Lord Bartholomew works in the Justice Department, and Lord Lucas will be working with you in foreign affairs." "Ah," Steffan said, lifting his chin. "Well, that gives me the perfect lead-in." "Just be certain to call him by his full name of Lord Lucas Liddingham II, or he will be quite vexed with you," the queen said, with mock scolding. Steffan chuckled. "I will try to remember. Are the other gentlemen in the group also friends with the Chancellor?" "Yes. Lord Charles works with the Chancellor in customs, and Lord Frederick will also work with you in foreign affairs. But I find him to be quite amiable." Steffan raised his eyebrows, looking slightly worried, but he soon smoothed out his expression. "Who will you speak with first?" I would like to find out more about the ambassador of Sandrian, and if he brought more spiders with him," the queen said, with slight vexation. Steffan frowned at that. "And I will probably speak to Marquis de Raven next, since it is his port with records and practices that are suspicious." Andraya's nerves suddenly prickled and popped throughout her entire body. She looked at the prince, who she found studying her again. "Your Majesty, will you do me the honor of dancing with me? I thought we were about to commence our detective work." "We are, but I wish to start the evening off right. Besides, you look far too beautiful for me not to ask." He held out his hand. "May I?" Andraya smiled brightly and put her hand in his. He bowed and kissed it before sliding one hand at the small of her back and clasping the other in hers. Instantly he led her in the steps of a minuet. "You dance very well," Andraya complimented the prince. "I practiced with Colleen last evening," Steffan admitted. "Ah, yes, she used to be my partner growing up." Andraya made the mistake of looking into the prince's eyes. She still could not believe how scorching blue they were, and at the moment full of admiration. Her heart accelerated. Did others notice he looked at her this way? "Is sky blue the royal color in Deldria? Is that why you have so many blue suits? Or do you just wear them to torture me?" Steffan furrowed his brow. "Your suit brings out the color in your eyes," Andraya explained. "They are so—" She paused. She wanted to say gorgeous, but instead she said blue, although her blush probably gave her meaning away. Steffan's lips curled up. "It is Deldria's royal color, but I will wear another if you prefer." Andraya laughed breathlessly. "I do not think another color suit will help my predicament." Steffan cracked a smile. "I am certain my predicament is greater than yours, my lady." Andraya's eyes swelled at the intimate term he had used only once before, but she did not want to correct him. "I dare say you are wrong, your highness. If I were to wear a brown dress to match my eyes, I highly doubt it would unnerve you so." Steffan chuckled as he spun her around. "You have no idea how stunning you are, do you?" Andraya blushed in response. Steffan took his free hand and traced her lacy silver sleeves. "I very much like this dress. That is a very intriguing crest at your waist. I have never seen anything like it. It was my mother's, and my father had the diamonds put on the rest of the dress as a goodbye gift for me when I left Medine." Steffan smiled. "Are you too close?" Andraya shrugged one shoulder. "As close as we can be, with living so far away from each other." "Have you been happy in Chaldrea?" Steffan asked, gazing at her intently. Definitely not, Andraya thought. "Well, it has been different," she said. To prevent him from asking further questions, she blurted the very next thing she thought of. "Do you like my hair?" Then she regretted opening her mouth. What a juvenile thing to say. But Steffan smiled easily. "Yes, I do not know how you manage so many lovely curls. Everything suits you. There really are no words for how you look." They grew silent, and Steffan continued to stare at her with a mixture of delight and desire. Or maybe it was neither of those things, as Andraya's own thoughts were so distracted by how much she liked holding his shoulder, or how he pulled her closer to him when the dance allowed it. Then Steffan cleared his throat. "Speaking of my predicament, do you mind telling me just how many gentlemen I am competing with for your attention? I would like to know what I am up against." "I am not a prize to be won, your highness." "But your heart is. Well, maybe not to be won per se, but it would be my greatest treasure if I had it." Andraya dropped her hands and stopped dancing. A treasure. He thought of her as a treasure. Not a possession, not a burden, not something to show off. A treasure. But how could this be? He did not know her that well. Andraya felt her eyes burn with tears. She could not tell if it was from the tenderness she felt from him or from her confusion. Besides her father, a royal had never cared for her. But the prince had always acted caring, had he not? Andraya's limbs trembled. What was happening to her? Steffan traced his fingers down her arms. What is it? I cannot tell if those are happy tears or not. Suddenly, Andraya realized where she was. She was in the throne hall, with all the nobility. She was the queen. How could she allow him to do this to her? A queen should not show emotion like this. She glanced around the room. Most people were not paying close attention to her, but some were. Dolion definitely was. So were his friends. Basically, all those who she did not want looking at her. This is a trick, she said in a low voice. Steffan's eyes bulged. A trick? Andraya did not really think he was tricking her, but at the same time she was too afraid that he was. If her beloved father had not discerned Gordon's character before he arranged her marriage, how could she rightfully judge anyone? What do you mean? Steffan asked. Andraya blinked hard, then stretched her neck to one side, trying to pull her rational self back together. My husband died just over a month ago. Steffan hesitated. I know that, he said softly. So your words are too soon for me to hear, she said, her tone coming back to normal. Steffan opened his mouth, then shut it again. Twice. Finally he whispered, I am sorry. One of my worst faults is sharing... He heaved a deep breath. Too much. But why? Your Majesty, do you not think that 3 dances with the prince is enough? Andraya jumped in place at Dolion's accusing voice. Somehow he managed to move by her side without her noticing. Had she really danced with the prince for 3 songs? Thankfully, her tears had not escaped down her cheeks. Better still, Dolion's presence provoked her to defensiveness, rather than feeling completely unhinged. And this matters to you, Chancellor, because... Dolion gave a fleeting glare at the prince, then returned his gaze to hers. The queen was surprised to see him look a little uncomfortable. Because I would like to dance with you. May I? He asked, holding out his hand to her. Andraya hesitated, but she put her hand in his, not daring to look at Steffan's face. Dolion twirled her around in a slightly faster minuet. His leading style was rougher, but at least he was easy to follow, which was more than she could say for most gentlemen. Do you like my look tonight? Dolion asked. He donned a traditional Chaldrayan royal black suit, but with a bright red cravat, cummerbund, and cufflinks. A little red amaryllis peeked out of his breast pocket. You look very well, Andraya said truthfully. Dolion grinned. Oh, this is for you. He stopped his steps briefly and pulled out the flower from his pocket and tucked it in one of Andraya's secured black curls. Then he put his hands back in dancing position and resumed his steps. There. Now you are wearing your favorite color. Why did you choose to wear silver tonight? Andraya rolled her eyes. Why does it matter, Chancellor? I am only curious, Dolion said, spinning her around again. Andraya almost told him her dress was a gift from her mother and father, but for some reason she did not want to share that with him. So she resorted to, because I like silver and diamonds. Dolion grinned. Of course you do. Now tell me why you fancy the prince so much, other than the fact that he always tells you what you want to hear. I can assure you he does not do that, Andraya murmured. Dolion raised his eyebrows high. Then what is it? His rank? A widowed queen does not have to marry a prince, I will have you know. Andraya gave him a disapproving look. I am aware, Chancellor, and if you interrogate me further on this subject, I will end our dance right now. Fine, Dolion said. Then tell me the real reason for this party. I know you are up to something, and it is not simply to make merry. Andraya's heart thumped nervously. She knew she could not sidestep this question completely without him digging in further. I was hoping the wine might leak a confession out of someone, she admitted. Is that all? Yes, the queen lied. Dolion frowned. I warned you that it was a fool's errand. If you were in my position, would you not want to know? That is different. I am a man and can take care of myself. You cannot. Andraya let go of him immediately, which just happened to be at the closing of the song. Her heart jolted with fury, and her blood boiled up to her ears. but she kept her tone in check. "I do not believe you are aware, Chancellor, but my bodyguard is just itching to crush your skull. Those are his words. I would suggest you do not give me a reason to request it." She lifted her skirts and marched away. Dolion grabbed her by the arm. "You do not understand why I said that." Andraya spun around, whipping her arm free. "I understand you perfectly," she spat. "I am only trying to protect you," he said in earnest. "Protection does not mean patronizing." Andraya's voice was calm, despite the rage in her chest. Dolion's eyes grew large. She lifted her chin, rolled her shoulders back, and stomped off. And that concludes Chapter 21. Thank you for listening to Queen Andraya. I hope you come back next Thursday for Chapter 22, where they make a little more headway with the enemies in the palace. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.